We know that similarity means that two or more things have the same value or estimate. This can be exciting. How can we change our bad thoughts into good ones? How do we get rid of everything we don't want? If you know what a problem sounds like in your head and hear someone talking about it, you know where the answer is. That's exactly what you need: answers and solutions. And that's why I'm giving you this audio today, so you can solve your problems by thinking about them. It's important that you pay attention to what I'm about to say, because I know it will help you. Share it with other people so that they can also gain from it. One thing that every child should learn is that this world is only in their minds. It would be best if he was taught this instead of everything else. Most people haven't been taught this, so a lot of them don't know it. This, my friend, may be the key to life. We're all very interested in the same thing, our search for God and knowing what He's like, more than anything else. Metaphysics' main goal is to teach us how to practice being in God's presence. We practice being in God's presence by seeing Him everywhere, in everything, and in everyone, even when it doesn't seem like it. When we look at the world through the eyes of our flesh, we see chaos, fear, and many other problems. But Jesus Christ, our teacher, and perhaps the best teacher who ever lived, told us not to judge by appearances, but by what is right. Thus, when we see the appearance of evil, we look at the truth that lies behind it. When we see the truth spiritually, the appearance changes because it is a mental world. But most people don't know this. They think it is a material world, which is why people have problems. Even after 2,000 years of Christianity, the world is still having a very hard time. But we know the truth. We don't rate people based on how they look, because we know that the most important thing in life is to understand this. Everything in your life, the body you have, the home you live in, the job you have, and the people you meet, is a physical reflection of a thought you hold in your mind. Everything is shaped by the ideas you have in your mind. From the very beginning to the very end, the Bible says the same thing. I'll say it in philosophical terms today, but the Bible says it in religious terms. If you understand what the mental equivalent means, I want to tell you that you must provide a mental equal for everything you want in life: a healthy body, a satisfying job, friends, chances, and most of all, a knowledge of God. Things will come to you if you can give yourself the thought version of what you want so badly. What you need is a thought version for things to come to you. As for the things in your life that you want to get rid of, and I'm sure we all have them, those mental equivalents must be made to disappear. These could be physical illnesses or character flaws that are some of the most important. The things we want to change in our business, family, and personal lives are habits of thought and action that we all have. We can change these things if we free our minds of their mental equivalents. It is important to say this again. If we let go of their mental counterpart, they have to go away. You can see or feel things in your body, at home, at work, or in the city where you live. These things are all manifestations of mental images that you hold. The mental equivalent of the people who live in your city has made it the way it is, and the mental equivalent of the millions of us who make up the world has made it the way it is now. What about war? In other words, it is the actual form of what people think about. Many people have believed that they can get rich by stealing other people's things. People have also believed in death and shortage, that violence pays off, and that stealing other people's things pays off. We've all believed this to a certain point. It was only normal that this would lead us to think of war, death, and pain. People's thoughts are like war, and war shows up in the real world. It will show up if people have the emotional version of disease, sadness, or something similar. It is possible for the world to have the mental equal of health, peace, and wealth. Then these things will happen. It will happen a little later than most people think, but there will be peace, unity, and understanding between people and countries. But what we see in the outside world is always the mental image of something that is being held up by one or more people. Physicists and scientists are the ones who first used the phrase mental equivalent. As an example, we talk about the mechanical version. Engineers are always changing what different types of energy mean because they have to figure out how much electricity is needed to do certain mechanical tasks, like running a compressor. If you wanted to use coal to make electricity, you would have to figure out how much coal you would need to make a certain amount of electricity, etc. In the same way, there is a thought version of every real thing or event. Building up the mental image of what you want and getting rid of the mental image of what you don't want is the key to living a happy life. How about you? You have rheumatism, which is a disease like arthritis, osteoarthritis, low back pain, or osteoporosis. In fact, arthritis was known as the disease of the British people. Someone felt it from the beginning of October until March, someone else until Christmas, and someone else felt it until February. Why does one man in every two who lives in the same town, does the same work, eats the same food, and drinks the same water get rheumatism from October to February, and the other does not? Why? Because they have shown in their minds that they have it. How come someone who likes to fight always seems to be having trouble? This person thinks that a certain city, like New York, is too hot to handle, so all of a sudden he moves to Chicago because he thinks it will be easier there. But soon he makes enemies in Chicago, and he travels as far as Kansas City because he has heard that the people there are very friendly. But soon he has problems there too, because he has a temperament that makes him easily angry. There's another man who finds happiness everywhere he goes. If he goes to see a family that is fighting, there is peace during his visit. He has the same kind of peace and love that comes from God. Building a mental picture of what you want and getting rid of the mental pictures of what you don't want is the key to life. How do you come up with the right mental image? It's built in your mind when you think slowly, steadily, and repeatedly about the things you want. This way of thinking gives you two things: clarity and interest. Think about what you want in your mind over and over again, clearly, and with a lot of interest about what you have chosen and what is very important to you. This is especially important if you want to be healthy, have a good activity, find your true place, be inspired, have good friends, and most importantly, have God understand you. Don't forget clarity and attention. Of course, the law of polarity is a law of the universe. Everything happens because of what other things do. This is the law of polarity. Everything that happens in the world is caused by two things. It's called fatherhood in the biological world and protons and electrons in the artificial world, which is made up of physics and chemistry. This is how the material world is put together. It always takes two things to make a third. This is what the triad really means. Before Christ, there were beliefs that talked about the Trinity. There were Trinity in Egypt, India, Chaldea, and Babylon. There is always a Trinity: the Father, the Mother, and the Son, work, things, and output. You can find the Trinity anywhere you look. To get people to think, the two opposites are clear thinking and nice feeling, or knowing and feeling. It's almost always the case that philosophy students don't bring their treatments to life because they don't feel them. Oh yes, I am divine spirit, I am one with God, they say, but they don't feel it. The second duality is missing. They are emotional and feeling when they talk about their problems, but cold as a dead fish when they talk about them. Right now, they can't think of anything colder than a dead fish, unless it's a metaphysician who has lost his connection with God. People say things like, "I am the divine spirit," but they don't really feel it. But when they say things like, "What pain I am in," they mean them, and that pain stays with them. Someone who doesn't have a job says, "God is my source of provision." This person is always in the right place, They say it perfectly, but they don't feel it. If someone asks him if he has a job, he will say, "No way, I haven't had a job in 2 years. I make applications and go see how much work they tell me I have, but they were prejudiced against me and didn't give me any chance." As soon as he says no, he gets emotional, which shows that he still doesn't have a job. Being able to think and feel clearly leads to proof, because that's how the mental version is built. Think about what you need to happen. If you want to be healthy, happy, wealthy, usefully employed, and have a deep understanding of God, you don't have to draw the picture. Just think about it, feel it, and give it your full attention. When we think about feeling, what we really mean is interest and excitement. Excitement is not a feeling. Have you ever seen something else happen when someone was really excited besides an apoplexy? Thinking with true feelings is helpful. You won't be able to find a successful person, from the president to someone with a regular job, who wasn't interested in their work. You also won't be able to find someone who has been interested in their work and failed at it. The person with a regular job who has done well at it and cares about it has put their whole heart into it. This person really enjoys their job and works hard at it, so they get more perks for it, but money could never pay for all the work they do. He has been so excited about doing it that he doesn't really get paid for it. He pays himself because he loves what he does and has people waiting in line to hire him. To make what you want in your mind, you have to be interested in it. This is how you make people feel. If you want health, be interested in it. Being interested in something that helps other people is the best way to find the right place. People don't make progress in their business because they are too busy planning ways to steal money from other people to think of ways to help others. They only care about what they want to do and get rid of what doesn't interest them. How are you going to get rid of the wrong mental copies? Let's say you have something in your mind that is like anger, jobless, abuse, or not knowing spirituality. You have no interest at all when someone talks about God. You get tired and bored. Maybe you don't get along with some people. It's not that you fight with them, but that they fight with you. What needs to be done? To get rid of a wrong mental image, you have to give it a replacement. Right thinking gets rid of wrong thinking on its own. If you say, "I'm not going to have resentment anymore, I don't believe in this, I'm not going to think about this," then what are you thinking about? You are still only thinking about anger all the time, which makes the mental version of anger stronger. Leave that thought behind and share the word about health, leisure, peace, and unity. In this way, you are building something internal that is like health. If you want the right place, whether your problem is unemployment, not having a job, having the wrong job, or a job you don't like, saying, "I'm not going to think about unemployment," it's wrong. This is thinking about unemployment, isn't it? Stay upbeat and think in the right way. When you tell yourself, "I'm not thinking about the Statue of Liberty in New York," what do you think about? The Statue of Liberty is the only thing that comes to mind. She is there with the light in her hand. I say I'm not thinking about her, but you are. I recently went to a place near Springfield, Illinois, that was an exact copy of New Salem Village during the time of Abraham Lincoln. The house was even the same. Don't you remember the Statue of Liberty? I gave you a different idea than what you were thinking about New Salem. This is the key to controlling your mind, your thoughts, and your fate. Do not take on bad things. Instead, fill them with things that are good and helpful. The law of the mind says that you can get rid of one thought by having another one instead. If a woodworker drives a nail into a board, it stays there. But if he then drives a second nail on top of the first one, the second nail comes out. Like this. This is what happens in the mind when you switch images, because everything in life has to have a mental counterpart. If you decide today not to think about your mistakes or the mistakes of others, if you stop thinking about mistakes and keep the ideas real instead, if you stop thinking about fear and think about divine love instead, if you stop thinking about lack and think about plenty and God's presence, and if you think clearly and set your mind to it, you will be building a mental equivalent of happiness and peace. You can't make a mental parallel if your thoughts are too broad. If you don't find it interesting to think, you won't be able to make a mental version. So keep your thoughts as clear as possible and never fight. When you think, I'm going to get what I want, even if it costs me my life, you stop. Learning new things. As soon as I told someone to relax, they became more stressed because they wanted to relax, even if it costs them their lives if necessary. Of course, they lost sight of their real goal. As much as possible, think about what you want. Be clear, but not too clear. I want a house in the country or the suburbs with a balcony and a big yard full of trees and flowers is fine if you live in an apartment. But never say, I have to have the house at 257 9th Avenue or 5th Avenue. Let's say you go shopping. You should know what you want to buy, or at least have a good idea of what you want. If you say, I want something, but I don't know what it is, I'll let God inspire me. And then you say, I want a business. It could be a farm or a store. I'll let God inspire me. That is not the right way to do things. Then the question comes up, what are you here for? As God's representative, you must have a strong desire and hunger. Say, I want a store, and I know what kind of store I want. I know a woman who manifested a hat store even though she didn't have any money to start the business. She wanted to open a hat shop because she loved making hats and was naturally good at it. She could make a hat for any woman, which was the skill she needed for the shop. She wasn't very good at running a business, so she made her mind into a hat shop. She didn't say, it has to be on a certain block, on a certain street. She didn't say, I'm going to have this store even if it costs me my life. She didn't say, I want a store and I'm going to have Juanitas. She didn't say, I want a store and I'm going to have Juanitas. She built a specific mental equivalent, and this is the right way to do it. If you say, I want a healthy, strong body, that's the mental equivalent of constantly thinking of your body as a perfect body. That's fine. Don't think about too many details. Don't say, first I'm going to straighten my teeth thinking correctly and leave the baldness for later. Or maybe better to fix the baldness issue first and the teeth to wait. Here it is, the details that are wrong. The wrong thing to elaborate is to go into petty details, saying, I want it when I say my way, whether God wants it or not. Instead of going into details, you should have a definite idea. Don't struggle to clarify your ideas. They will be clearer tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, or 15 days from now. If you have a pair of binoculars and you want to focus on something better, all you do is adjust them until you focus clearly. To get the mental equivalent, you may need a week, a month, maybe a year. Fill it with interest, like an electric charge, or it dies. The only way is with love. You can't be interested in something if you don't love it. If you love it, it's full of interest, full of energy and life, and it becomes real. There is an interesting anecdote about Napoleon. He thought that a big nose was a sign of a very strong character. He would say, give me a man with a big nose. If someone came to him and told him that such and such an officer deserved a promotion, he would immediately ask, has he got a big nose? If an officer was killed, he would replace him with a big-nosed one. And do you know what happened? The law sent him to Wellington, and Wellington was the one who destroyed him. Wellington had the biggest nose in English history. He himself said he had a hook for a nose. Take it as a joke if you wish, but it carries a very important lesson. The doctrine of the mental equivalent is the essence of metaphysical teaching, the doctrine that teaches that you will get whatever you provide a mental equivalent of. I have known many outstanding cases where people supplied the mental equivalent, and out of the sky came things that they would never have gotten in the ordinary way. I know men and women in London and New York and other places who humanly did not seem to ever succeed, but they appropriated this knowledge of the mental equivalent, held it, and quietly applied this knowledge, and sooner or later, without outside help, what they longed for came into their lives, and they kept it, and it was a blessing to them. How can you build up a new mental equivalent? It is your job to bring it into demonstration, and to do it successfully, you need to know why you should do it. Why should you bring it into manifestation? Some say, if God is everything and everything is perfect, why should I seek and demonstrate His law? Because you must prove the harmony of being in your own life. This is the reason. If there were no need for manifestation, one could go to sleep and stay there, or perhaps simpler, go to the first undertaker one will find. Of course, we are here on earth to make the manifestation of God, and true expression is what we call manifestation, because that is how the law of being is demonstrated. It is your duty to keep yourself healthy, prosperous, and free. It is your duty to express God to the extent of your capacity, and you have no right to relegate your efforts until you have not accomplished this. Unless you are in excellent health and visibly regenerating yourself, until you have achieved the perfect place and the right activity, until you are consciously free of all fear, anxiety, criticism, you are not demonstrating it, and you must look for the why not and correct the error, whatever it may be. Jesus taught us to demonstrate our conscience, and every day we have the opportunity. You always bring to demonstration that which you have in your mind. What kind of mind do you have? I am not going to tell you, and don't let anyone else tell you either, because they don't know. Those who sympathize with you will tell you that your mentality is better than it is. Those who don't like you will tell you it is worse. So ask no one about your mentality, but examine your conditions and you will see what you are manifesting. This method is scientific and infallible. If a mechanical engineer is working out a new design for an automobile engine, if he is going to do something different in the valves, for instance, he does not say, "I would like to know what Smith thinks of this. I have a friendship with Smith. If he doesn't like this, I'm not doing it." Nor does he say, "I'm not going to implement this idea because it comes from a Frenchman and I don't like those people." He is impersonal in this case and doesn't get caught up in emotion. He says, "I am going to try it," and he decides by the results I get. Then he tries it by observing the results cautiously and decides accordingly. He neither cries, nor laughs, nor gets excited, nor hammers the table, but tests the idea scientifically and only judges by the results. This is how you should handle your mentality. This is how you should practice metaphysical teaching. You are the one who demonstrates the state of your mind at all times. You experience outwardly what you actually think inwardly. This is the meaning of the saying, "As within, so without." Note that in the Bible the word within means thought, and the word without means manifestation, experience. That is why Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven, health, harmony, freedom, is within. Harmonious thought brings harmonious life. Thought of fear, of anger, brings suffering and frustration. This brings me to the most important point of what I want to tell you. That is, if you want to change your life, if you want to be healthy, young, prosperous, and above all, if you want to be closer to God, and I know you do, you must change your thoughts and keep them changed. This is the secret to control your life, and there is no other way. Jesus himself could not have done it any other way, because this is the cosmic law. Change your thinking and keep it changed. We have been told this since the metaphysical movement began. I have heard it for a long time, but many of us are very slow in realizing its importance. If you wish to change any condition in your life, you must change your thinking about it and keep on changing. Then the condition will change accordingly. All anyone can do for you is to try to get you to change your thinking. That is what a metaphysician can do for you, but you have to keep the change. No one can think for you. Changing your way of thinking and maintaining the change is the way to build a mental equivalent. This is the secret of achievement. You already have the mental equivalent of everything in your life today, and you must destroy those molds of what you no longer desire, and they will disappear from your life. You must make a new mold, a mental equivalent of what you wish to see manifested in your life. Of course, changing your way of thinking for a short time is the easiest thing in the world. Everything can be done after attending a lecture, listening to a good audio, or listening to a good speaker. The excellent atmosphere, the positive instructions make you feel optimistic. The teacher reminds the audience of the truth of being, and the audience thinks, "I believe in this. I am going to put it into practice." But in 5 minutes later, after leaving the lecture, they forget. The problem with most students is not that they don't change their thinking, but that they don't keep it changed. If you want health, you must cease to think of disease and fear. You must make it a habit to think of health and harmony. There is no disease unless there is fear. Nothing can adversely affect you except your fear of it. Everyone has many fears in the subconscious of which he is not aware, but they work just the same. One man said, "I visited a town in a foreign country in Eastern Europe where there was an epidemic of typhoid. I did not know there was typhoid there. I had never thought about it. I did not know the language and could not read the newspapers. They were printed in Greek. Yet I got typhoid and was sick." How do you explain this? The explanation is that he believed in typhoid fever. He believed that it was contagious, that it made you very ill for many days. So he had a subconscious fear of it. He knew subconsciously that there was a typhoid epidemic around him, and as always happens, the subconscious dramatized his fear belief and presented him with a good case of typhoid fever. Change your way of thinking and maintain the change not for a moment or 10 days at a time, but steadily and constantly. Then you will build a new mental equivalent, and a mental equivalent is always demonstrated. The secret of harmony and success is in concentrating your thoughts on harmony and success. That is why I teach that attention is the key to life. What you put your attention on and concentrate on manifests in your life, because you are building a mental equivalent. Many fail to concentrate successfully because they believe that concentration means effort of will. They actually try to concentrate on their muscles and blood vessels. They frown, they clench their fists. They are unwittingly thinking of a drill and believe that the harder they clench, the lighter the result. But it is all wrong. Forget the drill and think of a camera. In a camera there is no need to squeeze very hard. Here the secret is in the focus. If you want to portray something, you focus on it with the lens, serenely and firmly, and persistently for the necessary time. Supposing I want to portray a vase with flowers, what do? Well, I don't press it violently against the camera lens. That would be silly. I put the vase in front of the camera and leave it there. But supposing that after a few minutes I move the vase and put a book in front of the camera, and then I move it too, and I put a chair and put the flowers behind it for a moment, do you know what will happen to my picture? And isn't this exactly what people do with their minds when they do not keep their thoughts concentrated on something long enough? They think of health for a few minutes, but then they think of sickness or fear. They think of prosperity, then of scarcity and depression. They think of perfect bodies, then of old age, its ailments and infirmities. Is there then any doubt why man is so given to showing a blurred picture? Note carefully that I have not said to take a thought and try to have it by sheer will. This is wrong. You must give free rein to various thoughts to enter your mind, one naturally leading to another, but they must all be positive, constructive, harmonious, directed to your desire, and you must think serenely and effortlessly. Then you will obtain the mental equivalent of success, and success will show itself. Success, health, social relations in your work, in your spiritual development. And how should you maintain the mental equivalent? It is good to make a practical experiment, so I advise you to take an issue in your life, something you wish would go away, or something you wish to obtain. Change your thought about it and keep it changed. Don't be in a hurry to pick the problem. Take your time. Don't tell anyone about himself. If you tell a friend, you are, of course, strongly affirming its existence, what it is you wish to eliminate itself. If you tell the friend that you are working on your rheumatism or shortage, you are making these things very real in your subconscious. Also, your spiritual energy is being wasted like electricity on the ground antenna. Take your problem and change your thinking about it and hold the change for a month, and you will be amazed at the results you will get. If you truly hold your thinking steady on the change, the demonstration can take place in a matter of hours. But to keep tensely waiting for the demonstration is in itself to affirm the existence of the problem, is it not? The secret is to keep your thought changed to the new condition, so keep your thought carefully and warmly expressive to the new condition you wish to produce. Believe in what you are thinking, and to prove that you believe in it, you have to do your part. By changing your thinking about the problem and maintaining the change, you are building a new mental equivalent, a mental equivalent of harmony and success. This equivalent, as we know, will be demonstrated in your experiences. For some time you will find that your thoughts continue to sleep in the old mold. Such is the force of habit. But if you persist, you will quietly win the victory. It is always a little difficult to change a habit, but it can be done, and then the right habit is established and becomes easier than the old one, and thus the new mental equivalent is built up. Change your mind and keep the change. Don't talk about the negative issue or act as if it exists. Act as if the new situation is actually already present. If you do, the new condition appears in the external, for the external is but the projection of the internal. We project our experience and call it experience, but this does not give us the key between a true action and a false or unreal action. What is true action? A true action is one that really changes things. False action does not. For example, if your car has traction, it moves. This is a real action, but without traction there will be movement, vibration, but it does not start. You are ruining the engine and maybe the tires, but it gets you nowhere. The same goes for that person who is killing time. He gets tired, he wears out his shoes, but he gets nowhere. These are examples of false actions. Supposing you have to write a difficult letter, prepare a sermon or a lecture. You sit with the paper in front of you, make circles, draw pictures, bite the pencil, play with your hair. This is a false action, and there are many who do this. These actions produce nothing for you. Begin to channel your thoughts and write them down in a real action. You will notice the difference is that the false action started from the outside. You have not prepared your thoughts. You want to start by writing. With true action you first ordered your thoughts and then wrote, or the external activity continues. False action means stagnation. True action is always fruitful. True action comes from the inside out. False action tries to do the opposite, from the outside in. One is centrifugal and the other is centripetal, in technical terms. If you are working from center to circumference, your work is alive and productive. If you are working from circumference to center, your work is dead and you will have negative effects. Artists and literary people talk about Rollo. Do you know what a Rollo is? It is a picture you paint or a story you write, not because you are interested in it, but to make money. It is never good, because it is not the result of inspiration, but for monetary purposes. If it is done from the outside, it is a false action. This is a common saying among writers that 3 roles kill the talent, and that is true. The right way to paint a picture is to admire the beauty somewhere, in a landscape, in a beautiful face, or wherever you admire it, inspires you that beauty, and then you go to the canvas and express there your inspiration. That is art, and it helps you to your own development. If you write a story, a novel, because you have observed life, you have seen certain things, studied certain people, and you write it because you are living all this, that is real action, and you will write a great book. Dickens, George Eliot, Balzac, and all the great authors, they wrote in that way. But if you say, I'll write 1,500 words every day and then turn it into my publishers, same old crap to get money, your work is dead. This practice will kill all the talent in you. If you are in the business world and you have an interest in a job and you love it, your job is a positive action and you will succeed in the long run, even if the position is not to your liking. But you think, this is my position at the moment and I am going to do my best, and I know something better will come my way. You are working from the inside out. Your job is a positive action, and you won't have to wait long for something you really like. Many people know these things are true. They know they are true for making pictures, stories, and for business life. But they don't realize that they are equally true for things of the soul. But here's the reality. If you spend hours and meditate from the outside because you consider it an obligation, or because you feel guilty if you don't do it, your prayers are dead. You will get no demonstration, no spiritual progress, no joy. But if you feel that by praying and meditating you are visiting God, and that these are the happiest moments of your existence, then you are working from the inside out. Your spiritual growth will bear fruit, and you will grow rapidly in spiritual understanding. When praying in this way, there is no painful effort, and your soul is saturated with peace. The great enemy of prayer is the feeling of tension. When you are tense, you are working from the outside in. Tension in prayer is probably the greatest cause of failure in demonstration. Remember that the mind works efficiently when it is under tension. When you think, I have to bring to the demonstration, I have to make it in 3 days, you are tense, you are using your will, and this does more harm than good. Remember, the door of the soul opens inwards. If you remember this, you will save yourself years of waiting for the demonstration. It's better to write on a card and put it on your dresser, computer, or mirror so you can see it more easily. The door of the soul opens inward, and pray to God that you remember that every time you pray to Him. You know what it means when a door opens inward. The harder you push it, the more you get out. There is a very interesting Middle-Age legend. A citizen was arrested by a male and locked in a dungeon of his palace. He was taken to the bottom of the dungeon by a fierce jailer who carried a key a foot long. The door of the cell was open, and he was thrown into it. The door was jerked shut, and there he was left. He was locked there for about 20 years. The door was opened with a great noise and creaking. He was given a jug of water and a crust of bread, and again the door was closed. After 20 long years, the prisoner decided that he could no longer bear the confinement. He wanted to die, but he did not want to commit suicide. So he decided that the next day, when the jailer came, he would attack him. The jailer would kill him, and all his torments would end. He thought to examine the door carefully to be ready for the next day, and reaching it, he grabbed the latch and turned it. To his surprise, the door opened, and when he examined it, he saw that it had no lock and had never had one, and he realized that during those 20 years it had not been locked, but in his belief. At any time during that time, he could have opened the door, if only he had known. He believed it was locked, but it was not. He groped his way down the corridor and up the stairs. There were 2 soldiers talking, and they made no move to stop him. He crossed a very large courtyard unnoticed. There was an armed guard in the box at the exit gate, but he did not even notice him and went outside as a free man. He arrived home unmolested and lived happily from then on. He could have done that at any time in those 20 years of arrest, if he had had enough knowledge, but he did not. He was a captive, but not of a cell of stone and iron, but of his false beliefs. He was not locked up, he just believed he was. Of course, this is but a legend, but an extremely instructive one. Some of us are in a prison of want. Some of us are in a prison of guilt. Some of us are in a prison of intelligent and blind fear. And some of us are in a prison of disease. But the prison is always in our minds, not in the world around us. There is no truth in our problems, no reality in our lack, and no power in time or conditions to make us old, tired, or sick. In these teachings of the great teacher, Jesus Christ,